Hi, welcome to C.H.A.R.G.E. I hope you're having a really good week. I know I've been having some time to play outside, and I bet you have too. Whenever you're playing outside, I bet sometimes you get thirsty. If you were to come in the house after playing outside really thirsty, and Mom offered you a drink of fruit punch just to cool off, which one of these drinks do you think she would most likely offer you? Do you think she would give you, just a little bit in a cup like this? Or do you think she might give you a nice big drink like this? I'm guessing that your mom or dad would give you something like this. They love you, they care about you. They know that this wouldn't be enough to get you cooled off. They would give to you generously. Generous just means that we give without holding back. You know, the Bible talks about how God gives something to us generously. The Bible says if anyone lacks wisdom, he should ask of God, who gives to all generously and without finding fault, and it will be given to him. That's in James chapter 1, verse 5. Well, today we're going to find out about somebody who did receive generous wisdom from God because he asked. If you don't already have your paper and pencil, you might run and get that real quick. We're just going to need 4 boxes on your paper today. So if you fold it in half lengthwise and fold it in half the other way, you'll have your 4 boxes ready to go. I'll draw some pictures, and as I do, I hope that you draw along at home too. If you were with us last week, you know that we talked about a king named King David. David was a king who loved God, who wanted to obey God, even though he made a lot of bad choices in his life. He still did care, and he confessed his sins to God, and he tried to live the way that God wanted him to. Well, when David became a very old man, he saw that he was going to not be king forever, and he needed to be careful about who God chose as the next king. David had a son named Solomon, and this was the one that God chose to be the next king over Israel. Solomon, even when he was a young man, did something that showed that he had wisdom and that he made a very good choice. One night Solomon was asleep, and God appeared to him in a dream. So I'm going to draw a picture here that shows Solomon sleeping. This is the way God talked to him in a dream. We'll start with the letter C. We'll do another backward C on the other side. Those will be his ears. And we'll fill in underneath it here with some number 3s. We'll draw his eyes like this to show that he was asleep. Give him a nose, a little mouth. And then since he was the king, I'll kind of draw a crown on him here. Fill that in on top. Well, anyway, Solomon was asleep one night, and God talked to him in a dream. And he said, Solomon, ask me for what it is that you want. And Solomon could have asked God for anything. He could have asked God to give him a lot of money, to be very wealthy and rich. He could have asked God to help him to defeat all of his enemies so that they wouldn't have anyone to fight against. He could have asked God to give him a lot of power or to make him very popular with the people. But Solomon instead knew that to be a good king, he needed to be wise. That means he needed to understand what were the right choices, what were the things that God wanted him to do, and he needed to understand what were the bad things that he needed to stay away from. So Solomon asked God for wisdom. God was really pleased with this. He saw that Solomon understood what it took to be a good king. So not only did God make Solomon very wise, he also did give him a lot of wealth and riches and power to go with that. Well, Solomon soon had an opportunity to show that wisdom. There were 2 women, and these 2 women lived in the same house, and each one of them had a baby. I'm going to draw a picture of one of the women here. Since there were 2 of them, I'll use the number 2 here in her face. Make that into one of her eyes. Give her a chin here. Well, these 2 women that lived together, and they each one had a newborn baby, one night during the night, one of the babies died. And the mother of that child saw that the baby had died, and she did a trick. She went and took the baby from the other woman and took that one and pretended it was hers and put the child that had died next to the other woman. So when that woman woke up, she thought her baby had died. But then she looked carefully and she saw that no, that wasn't hers. It was the other woman's baby. So there was one baby that was living, and both of the women claimed that it was theirs. They went to Solomon because he was the one that was going to rule and to make a decision about what to do about this child and who would get to keep the baby. Solomon listened to each of the women. He didn't argue with them. And then Solomon said something that really amazed people. He said, "Go and get my sword. We will cut the baby in half, and each woman can have half of the baby, since they can't agree on whose baby it is." That would have been a terrible thing. I'm going to show the number 1/2 to show what he was suggesting. Then we'll turn that 1/2 into a sword. Of course, when the woman who was really the baby's mother heard this, that they were going to cut the baby in half, she said, "Oh, no, stop. Don't do that. Let the other woman have the baby. Just don't harm him." Solomon knew then who the true mother of the baby was, and of course they didn't do anything to harm the baby. That was just one opportunity that Solomon had to show how wise he was. The Bible talks about a lot of other times when he showed that wisdom. Well, like I said, God gave Solomon a lot of gifts, not just wisdom. So I'm going to show a picture of a gift here. I'm going to change markers. That one's getting kind of weak. We'll put a bow on top of it here. Make a couple of lines of ribbon here. Solomon had a plan of something that he wanted to do that would really honor God. He wanted to build a magnificent temple, a place where people could worship God. Solomon wanted to put the very best into this temple. The very best wood, the very best stone that sparkled white whenever the sun shone on it. The floors would be gold. Solomon put his very best into making this temple and doing it just according to God's plan. I'm going to turn that gift into a temple. We'll use the number 7 on this side, kind of draw that backward there. And another one beside it. We'll put a door in between these two lines and kind of make it match on this side. I think we'll add some more to the sides of the temple there. Do the same on the other side. It took 7 years to build this temple. It's not because it was so huge, it was because everyone was so careful about every detail that went into it. It was made with very special materials for a very special purpose, to worship God. When the temple was finally finished, Solomon planned a celebration to dedicate the temple to show that it would be as a special place to worship God. And a lot of people joined in a big parade to celebrate the temple. This is going to represent the people here. And as the people gathered in celebration of the temple being finished, something amazing happened. They had a box that was called the Ark of the Covenant. And that was a special box where they kept a few things that reminded them of what God had done for them as a people and reminded them that God was with them. They brought that box, that Ark of the Covenant, into the temple. And whenever they did, a cloud that was colorful filled the temple. I'm going to use the number 3 around it here. And the people were in awe. They knew that that cloud was God's sign that showed that he was with them, that he was there, and that he was pleased with the temple. Solomon did a lot of wonderful things, but one of the first good choices that he made was asking God for wisdom. We can do the same things. Just like the Bible says in James that when we lack wisdom, we need to ask God. We need to do that so that we will know the right choices, the right decisions to make. And God will give us wisdom like he did for Solomon. I hope this week that you do think about wise choices that you can make, choices that honor God. I hope you have a really good week.